You wanted the best. You've got the best. The hottest podcast in the world. Cranked and Ranked. I had that in my brain. I'm like, I got to do that.
Totally.
Yes, you're listening to Cranked and Ranked. Thank you for joining. I have a feeling when it comes to a band like Kiss, I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. That's what we're starting to talk about is the band Kiss. I have a feeling there will be some people who don't normally listen to us that might be jumping in. And so hello to all of you. Cranked and Ranked is a podcast where two gentlemen, one in his 40s and one in his 20s, we rank band discographies and other rock and metal related things. And we're tackling Kiss. And we go in depth. And to be fair, just to throw this out there, it always ends up becoming that the idea of these episodes is more about talking about the albums and not so much where they actually fall in the ranking. The ranking actually just allows us to really inspect these albums and have these in-depth conversations about them. But still, we're ranking every Kiss studio album, which is including the 4 solo albums, but in order to save a little bit of time, we're leaving out the live albums. So not that they don't deserve to be talked about, but we're already going to be doing this in 3 episodes. So it's,
they might get their own little unique segment on another episode, maybe at the start, or maybe get their own little special.
Yeah,
that could be an idea for the video one.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. But the one thing that I kept thinking was we're doing a 3-part episode for a band that some people really love and a lot of people really hate. So I don't want to prolong it anymore for those listeners that are like, God damn it, can you just get done with Kiss and move on? But sorry, folks, this is part 1 of 3 of the Kiss discography ranking. As usual, I'm your host, Old Head, a.k.a. Steven, or depending on what you want to call me. With me, as always, is Mr. Eddie Sparxx. Hello, sir.
I feel I'm tired on a Saturday night.
Yeah. So Kiss. We normally begin these things by talking about where the bands we're talking about came into our lives, and we've done all sorts of things all over the spectrum, where we've known these bands since we were young, and some where we just started listening to them a year ago, or, in the case of when we did Judas Priest, I knew them, but I had not jumped into their discography until literally weeks before we did the episodes. But Kiss is a different story. I am a full-on Kiss fan. I have been ever since I was a kid. When I was at 9 years old, I believe, when the album Crazy Nights came out, that's when I first heard Kiss. And that made me, because I knew from just seeing stuff on TV that they were a band that had done a lot of stuff and used to wear makeup. So that led me to buying the compilation Double Platinum, and I've been a Kiss fan ever since. Even every album they've put out, I've heard many, many times. And even though you're going to hear me talk some shit, because I feel it's important to have that sort of balanced viewpoint on these bands, especially Kiss. Kiss is a band that people can talk shit, and half of the time I'll be like, that's totally warranted, But the other half of the time I'm like, you're just being an idiot. But yes, I'm a Kiss fan. And that's, yeah. I feel like I'm doing an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. But anyway, Eddie, where did Kiss come into your life?
Funnily enough, same album, Crazy Nights, except I heard the song, the title track, on
Crazy Nights.
Yes.
There's one more crazy in the song title.
Can't forget the crazy. But yeah, I heard that song on an 80s compilation CD my mum had in her car.
Yeah.
And this, I don't know if I've told this story on here before, and it was like to do with Europe and the Final Countdown. I think it was, yeah. But inspired by Karate Kid, I took up a martial art form, which was judo. And I haven't done it in years. I've totally forgotten everything, apart from like one specific flip.
Yeah, judo is a lot of flipping and pushing people over and stuff like. It's like a defensive kind of martial arts, isn't it?
Yeah. As far as I can remember, because like the much like Cobra Kai, the dude that did the karate nearby was kind of a tool. So, yeah. Anyway. It's I just remember being like really into 80s movies at the time, and Crazy Nights could easily just be a soundtrack to an 80s movie.
Yeah, I agree.
Like it has that really over the top glossy keyboard montage vibe. And, you know, that's kind of where I came in on 80s Kiss. But where I came in on 70s Kiss, You'll know where I'm going with this, don't you?
I don't.
It's GTA San Andreas.
No. Why? Of course. Why did I? Why would I think otherwise? I think it's because you threw me off with the whole judo thing, and I'm like, okay, this is a different story.
Yeah, Strutter is on the classic rock KDST radio station on GTA San Andreas, hosted by Tommy the Nightmare Smith, otherwise known as Axl Rose in real life. So, you know, hit that up. That's nice. A fun listen, KDST. But yeah, Strutter introduced me to 70s Kiss, and I was like, this is also really good. It's different to what I'd heard first, but this is the kind of thing I was talking about to you earlier before we started the podcast. When you get to 80s Kiss, it's like a totally different band.
Yeah, I could see that.
With Paul and Gene.
Yeah, it really does. It feels almost like, it feels like Kiss, but almost like Kiss from another dimension.
It's like parallel universe kind of thing. Yeah.
Cool. Well, so that was probably less than 10 years ago, you would say. When did GTA San Andreas come out?
2004.
Oh, okay.
GTA that it came out. I got it in 2007 because you know 6 years old is a little too young to be playing a game that violent.
Nah.
9 years old. 9 years old is the ideal age.
That's true.
But
my daughter's 9 now. Oh, she's about to be 10, and I'm still. She wants to watch like A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I go, no, I don't think you're ready yet. But when I was 9, my mom had already bought me A Nightmare on Elm Street on VHS. So I'm just like, all right, well, maybe I need to start being a little more lenient.
Were you ready? Were you ready when you saw it?
Because that's
kind of the gauge.
I saw the Dream Warriors first, Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Oh,
and then
shit,
went
with
back.
Dawkins. Hell yeah.
And then went back to the first one. That's for another episode where we could talk about just instead of talking about music, we'll rank the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I want to do that. Now that I'm saying it out loud, that's going to happen.
That's going to be the Halloween special of this year.
Okay, cool. We're planning ahead, folks.
I've got some serious catching up to do with 80s horror movies, which is
cool.
shocking.
I can help you with that.
Awesome.
So, all right. So, without further ado, today we're going to be doing. Let me look. I have so many notes. We're going to be doing numbers 24 to number 17. There are 24 full-length studio albums from Kiss when you count the 4 solo albums. And so, we're starting off with number 24. Eddie, as usual, take us away with your number 24 Kiss album.
Cool. So, for my number 24, I went for Sonic Boom.
All right.
So. This one, to me, felt like it didn't quite have the balls that most other Kiss albums had.
Yeah.
Plus, it's kind of... I have to be honest, I do feel weird about, you know, Eric Singer and Tommy Thayer having the same makeup.
I'm glad you're saying this first. Because I feel the same way.
And I'm wearing a shirt of the current lineup. You know, I found this in Asda, and I thought it was a cool shirt. And don't get me wrong, I love what they bring to the band, but I wish that they'd done what they did with like Vinnie Vincent and Eric Carr and came up with their own kind of, makeup style.
I think so it's weird because I'm kind of in the middle on this because I hate it. I don't know why I hate it so much, but I just wish that they had come up with different characters. But at the same time, they had spent so much time, with their marketing and all of this stuff where those 4 characters became the Kiss everybody knows. And so it would seem, I understand why maybe they were like, why would we even do that? Like those 2 guys, like that's the thing. You hear stories from all different sides of Kiss. I don't know who the asshole is. It could be all 4 of them. But you hear stories about everybody being hard to work with in some way or another. So if I'm trying, like, let's say that I was really good friends with Paul Stanley, I would be on his side with this because I'm his friend. And I would be like, well, yeah, those other 2 apparently were really hard to work with. So they fucked it up for themselves. So, but then again, if I was best friends with Ace Frehley or Peter Criss, I would feel like well, fuck them for wearing their makeup. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. But I absolutely agree with you that something about it makes it feel more like a traveling, tribute show than a real rock show. But that's not really, has nothing to do with the music. It's just the visuals. But we'd be lying if we said the visuals weren't important when it comes to Kiss.
Oh, with Kiss, it's all about the live show. Yeah. All about the gigs, dude.
But Sonic Booms, though.
Onto Sonic Boom. Modern Day Delilah is a cool opener with a good groove going on. I will say, not only on the image front with the, kind of tribute act feel some of it has on this album, it does feel a little bit like even in the artwork, it looks like a throwback to stuff like Rock and Roll Over or something along those lines.
Yeah.
It took me, I actually had to really look for a good sounding version of this on YouTube because it's not on Spotify.
It's not on Apple Music either. So I'm assuming. Nope. So I'm assuming. Wow. I mean, they're in control of all their shit as far as I know. So maybe they know that it's the worst. So they took it down.
Yeah. It to me, here's how I would describe it on my note for track 2, Russian Roulette. It feels like the type of music you hear in the background of a TV show about garages that restore classic cars. It's like rocking enough to keep the show going, but generic enough to not draw attention away.
Yeah, that's one of the worst things in the world to me is when you're watching a TV show and there's that faux rock music playing in the background. And I'm just like, oh, because you can, for people like us that love this music and also know how to play it, like you listen to it and you're just like, oh God, it's just, it feels soulless. And it's a thing that like I never bring up to like my wife when we're watching shows because I know she probably can't hear it because it just sounds like rock music. But to me, I'm like, no, you can't. It sounds fake. Yeah. So I just don't even talk about
it. It does sound like that kind of like background rock is how I would describe it because it's like it's designed to evoke an atmosphere but not pull attention away from something else.
Yeah, it's almost like when you go into like using iMovie and stuff like that, and they have pre-loaded rock tracks that you can use in your background. That's what it is.
Yeah, and that could be said for a lot of new music by 70s and 80s hard rock bands, don't get me wrong. Mm-hmm. But some do it better than others, and this kind of sound just don't do it for me when it comes to Kiss,
Yeah, there are bands that started in the 70s that put out really good albums in this century, and so we're not being cruel. I think we're being very honest with this kind of album.
And I'm just going to say this now. Never Enough is pretty much Nothing But a Good Time by Poison. like I heard it and I was just singing the, Poison melody over the top of it. And I thought this is just just fucking poison. And I thought I had a really original comment, and I went down to the comment section, and like 9 people had put the exact same thing. So I didn't feel as unique anymore, but it did solidify my argument.
Hopefully Bret Michaels doesn't listen to this. Otherwise, there's going to be a lawsuit that we've caused.
Yeah. Like 12 years after the fact.
Hey, you know what? It's never too late.
It's never too late. Yes, I know Nobody's Perfect is a fun rocker.
That's one of the worst song titles. Like, Nobody's Perfect is a fine song title. Yes, I Know is a horrible song title. So why not just get rid of that part and call the song Nobody's Perfect? I mean, you're already being pretty generic with your song titles. You don't need it's like you're trying to be more fancy with a really dumb song title, but whatever.
Yeah, this album, in my opinion, is the most generic. Stand, is a feel-good, uplifting track. My notes do sound pretty positive, but I'm giving all the tracks the benefit of the doubt as I listen to the album. But all in all, it's to me, it's got the least balls of any Kiss album, because it even the guitars sound dialed back, and we've talked about this in the past, where it sounds like they recorded it next to a room where like some old people are trying to sleep, and they say, "Hey, can you dial the amps back just a little bit? Edna's really struggling with her, insomnia."
Yeah. Or there's just the fact that they're a bunch of old dudes.
Yeah.
Like, do we have to have it up so loud?
Yeah, it's hot and cold. This one stood out to me the most so far. It was at least fun to sing along to. All for the Glory was way too generic for my taste.
Yeah.
Danger Us.
Danger you, danger me, danger us. Those are actually the lyrics, people. I didn't make that up.
And that's the thing. Something that is dumb like that could have sounded way cooler if the guitars had at least some oomph to them. But they sound so dialed back, and like, how do you make a distorted guitar sound like it's not into it? It's like, I don't feel like this today.
Indifferent. He has an indifference pedal that he clicks on. It's the Boss indifference pedal for you old rockers.
Jesus Christ. Do you want to sound like the background to a Mythbusters episode? What is it? What we got here? I'm an Animal. Cool song. Sabbathy edge to this one. When Lightning Strikes feels like an 80s era track. And
Tommy
then
Thayer on that one.
Yes. And to be honest, Say Yeah, for all the album's faults, in my opinion, it ends on a high note. This song sounds like an instant classic. It's got
They still play that one too.
Yeah, it's got some Alice Cooper Poison kind of stuff going on in those vocals, but it's a great way to close out an otherwise mediocre album.
Sure.
This is the one album that I listened to and I thought, oh man, the vibe is just not here.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Let me just run with this, because Sonic Boom's also my number 24.
Hey, we already have our first matchup.
I'm going to start off by talking about Say Yeah, because while it is a fun song, there's a thing that sticks out in Say Yeah and some of the other tracks that takes away from this album for me, and that is auto-tune.
Oh, God.
You can hear auto-tune on everybody's vocals, and I realize that, none of them can sing as good as they used to, and that's fine, but it really bothers me that they couldn't figure out a way to, because a lot of artists use auto-tune and we can't even tell. Yeah. Because that's how good the production is. They know how to blend it in and maybe smooth out the edges. But Sonic Boom, to me, I agree with you on a lot of it. It feels really uninspired. It almost feels like they had some sort of promotional thing going on and they had to get an album out in order to back up, their appearance on some movie or some or a tour that they were going to do. I don't know. It just feels like something where they just needed to get something out, and they did. And that's why there's, when it originally came out, there was a second CD of re-recorded classic Kiss songs.
Yeah.
And it just feels to me like, they were throwing something out there for a tour, or they had a lot of things coming out at that point and they needed some new music. But really, it's my biggest problem with the album, aside from that, is that a lot of it sounds like repurposed older riffs and song ideas. Like you can hear, even on Monster, the one following this, you can hear riffs where you're like, that is literally an inverted version of a riff from their first album or whatever,
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that on there. And really, like, it is a fun album. Like, it's enjoyable. There is no Kiss album that I don't enjoy. I'm going to throw that out there. But this one, it does feel a bit generic. It does feel like this is an album that I could understand people not liking. I almost feel like it's for the ultimate Kiss fanatics that just want more Kiss music. And then here you go. You get Sonic Boom. But there's really no standout tracks for me. This is an album that when it came out, I bought it, I listened to it a few times, and then I never thought about it again because I was just, it just didn't do anything for me. So that's why it is also my number 24, our first joint ranking of the Kiss. They're starting it off strong.
Nice.
But yeah, as you can hear, the way we do things, for those of you who are new, is Eddie's really big on going through each track and talking about its strengths and weaknesses, and I am more of a gut reaction, all-encompassing sort of summary. I'm the Cliff Notes version. Did you have Cliff Notes over in England? Do they have those?
I'm familiar with the term, but I'm aware that it's more of a US saying.
Yeah,
but then
so
again,
the Cliff
I
Notes
watch a shitload of US stuff. So
yeah, so it's like in school you're assigned to read the Grapes of Wrath, and you're like, fuck, I don't want to read this. And the Grapes of Wrath is like 400 pages long, but you can go buy the Cliff Notes version at your local bookstore that is like 20 pages long and just summarizes the whole story for you, with some other little added. I think they had like different points of here are important parts of the story, and then you could just cheat and hopefully make a 70 on your barely passing grade on your test. Anyway, so yeah, let's move on to number 23.
Cool. So my number 23, I'm gonna have to apologize to the Catman because his solo album was it just didn't cut it.
The Peter Criss solo album. Okay.
Peter Criss solo album. And
we're moving from the 2000s back to 1978, the year of my birth.
And I feel as though this album would not have been nearly as badly received had it not been associated with Kiss. Because this is not by any stretch a hard rock album. I would be way more inclined to put it in with like the, R&B yacht rock kind of stuff than anything remotely hard.
Yeah.
And here on in, I think Sonic Boom is the only write-off album for me where I think, like the last track and maybe the first track are okay, but everything in the middle of Sonic Boom just turns me off. But this one, I can appreciate it for what it is, but because it doesn't sound like Kiss, in a Kiss ranking, I felt like, I've got to weigh it up here. So I'm just going to go straight into the track by track.
Do it.
I'm Gonna Love You is much more old school 70s pop than rock. You Matter to Me, the synth is brilliantly cheesy.
Oh, I love it. I love that synth in that.
I'll admit, like this album doesn't feel like Kiss at all, so it hurts it a little bit, but in a way, I appreciate this on a different level. Yeah. And were this not in the Kiss catalog, I could it would probably be higher somewhere, but
Yeah. So for those of you who are sticking around listening to this, but you're not Kiss fans, we're talking about one of the 4 solo albums. So Kiss in 1978, each member released their own solo album with their own bands and their own songs, which for the most part on, these, they were originals. I do think that there was a couple covers on this one, but it was a pretty bold thing. They were like one of the biggest bands in the world at that point. So they're like, well, shit, what can we do that's different? We'll all release our own solo albums. And Peter Criss, the drummer, who also sang, this is his what I don't know what you would call it. his effort.
I was going to say his voice was always utilized on the softer Kiss songs like Beth and stuff like that. He's got more of a soul thing going on than
he had a very Rod Stewart type performance on his vocals.
Yeah, it's a lot more. It's a lot softer and nicer. But tossing and turning. This is wildly different to anything Kiss did before or since. Cool cover though. And all power to Peter for having huge balls to do something so far removed from the arena rock kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to go down a soft rock R&B route. Don't You Let Me Down. At this point, I'm thinking legitimately Conway Twitty could have sang on this and it wouldn't sound out of place in the slightest. You've got those like Wurlitzer keyboards or whatever they're called in there, and I'm thinking to myself, I could hear this over the top of it, and I wouldn't bat an eye. That's the kind of sugar Papa likes. Is in a way, awful title, but pretty cool song. And it funnily enough, this has a slightly more rockin' edge to it, despite being rooted in a lighter instrumentation, so to speak. Easy Thing. Now we get to side B, and side B is very ballad heavy.
Yeah.
So Easy Thing, you got your 70s power ballad. Rock Me Baby, seriously old time rock and roll vibe. Then you get Kiss the Girl Goodbye, acoustic ballad.
Yeah.
Then you get Hooked on Rock and Roll. Like they literally just alternate on side B between rock and roll ballad.
Yeah.
But
which I think I enjoy side B on this more than side A, because like I think Easy Thing's a pretty great song, and then Hooked on Rock and Roll's fun. Vaccinated with a Victrola needle and I'm hooked on rock and roll.
That's the thing. I do like this album, but in terms of it being a Kiss record, which it has the Kiss logo on it. All of the solo albums have the Kiss name associated with it, and they're all in their makeup. So to me, they are Kiss albums, but obviously solo projects at the same time. It's weird.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like this is what I think you would expect from Peter Criss, because the 2 songs that I think he was the most known for at this point were Beth and Hard Luck Woman.
Yeah.
Both softer kind of poppy songs. And so this feels appropriate for Peter Criss.
Yeah. I still feel like it was a hard pill for fans to swallow, that any member of them would do something like this, though. Because, I can't imagine the reaction of a Kiss fan hearing that little synth line in track 2.
Oh, God. I love it.
Like, can you imagine the dudes that had zero context that just thought, oh, I love all bashing on the drums. Fuck yeah, he'll have put out this pounding, hard hitting rock and roll fucking really drum driven thing, and then turning it on and hearing something that would be more likely to be found on a Christopher Cross record. You got I Can't Stop the Rain, and this is the 3rd ballad on side B. And while I didn't find this album offensively bad, I do feel like it has a slightly more background quality than maybe a more focused listen than some other Kiss albums. This is the kind of thing, I'd put on at like a family dinner, because it's it's nice to hear.
Yeah.
And it's not really aggressive and stadium while you're having a roast dinner with your grandparents.
I feel like if I was a teenager in the late 70s, this would have been the album that my mom got into just because she wanted to share it with me. Because my mom used to try to get into the music I was into, and for the most part, she just thought it was noise. So I have a feeling in the 70s, this would have been her album. She would have been like, oh, I like that Peter Criss. But,
who's that nice boy dressed like the cat?
But unfortunately, I can't continue the matchups with you here at this point, because for my number 23, I'm going to go ahead and just get rid of all these recent Kiss albums. My number 23 is Monster.
Wow.
The most recent Kiss album. And could it be the last Kiss album? I don't really know. I haven't heard anything from them about doing any more music, and really they were supposed to be on their final tour. So, I mean, I'm assuming maybe they got one more in them. Maybe they'll just do one for funsies at the end of their career. Who knows? Anyway, so this has got the same lineup as Sonic Boom, the fake Ace and fake Peter. I guess it's not Ace and Peter. It's the fake Spaceman and Catman, but still. The one thing that I have to say, even though Sonic Boom and Monster are at the end of my list, I'll talk about this a lot as we talk about certain albums. Both of these albums don't have any co-writers. Like, they wrote all the songs, which is not the best thing in the world, but I give them props for giving it a shot. Once again, there's auto-tune all over this album, and it's not as bad as on Sonic Boom, but I can hear it, and it annoys the fuck out of me. This album is not awful at all, but it does have a lot of generic rock and roll qualities to it, just like Sonic Boom. But if you're not looking to be like really impressed and just looking for a good time, I think Monster is a good way to go. It's a pretty fun album, and I like the fact that they tried to get an old school vibe as opposed to, well, there are some rehashed sounding kind of riffs on here, but it sounds like they were more cognizant of getting the vibe right of what they were trying to do back in the 70s. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But to some
extent, the 80s as well. There's a few moments on there that could have easily been 80s Kiss too.
Yeah, that too. But the one thing I will have to say, really for both of the albums I've been talking about, but this one mostly, is that everyone sounds really good here. Like, auto-tune or not, the delivery, it feels energetic to me. And it feels fun. It's not a bad last album. Since they really wanted to do new music with this version of the band, this is not a bad way to go out. It's just comparing these albums to anything done before, and considering that I'm also talking about albums that people really don't like, but to me, I'm like, no, these are the worst. These are the most. I could never listen to these two albums again, and I would be fine. So that's why they're my last two, Monster being my number 23. Let's quickly move on. We got a lot of shit to talk about.
Fair enough, dude. I've got for number 22.
23.
23.
Oh, wait, no, sorry, 22. You're right. There's so much going on, and I have all these notes, and I'm trying to keep track of everything that I'm just like, what number are we on? Fuck, I'm crossing things out so I won't go back. All right, go ahead, 22.
It's our biggest project since the Judas Priest trilogy. Yeah. I don't blame you if you're a little on edge. We've got a lot to talk about.
A little flustered.
So for my number 22, I've gone for Carnival of Souls.
Alrighty.
The final sessions. Before we begin, now, I have a fun game for listeners at home. Every time you hear something lifted straight from Alice in Chains on this album, take a drink, because you will get blasted in fucking no time. And
he's not lying.
And in all honesty, I did enjoy listening to this, but I had to dock it a few spaces because it does have a certain, hey, fellow kids, we're still cool aura around it.
Yeah.
So, without further ado, my track by track. Hate is already a massive departure from their classic sound, but do I hate it? No, I actually quite like this opening track. It's Gene's voice sounds great over the top of hard-hitting grungy metal, and there's a very Them Bones moment right at the end where it does like a 7/8 chromatic riff. Like, I'm thinking someone's been taking notes from the Jerry Cantrell handbook. I see.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like what else have we got? Rain. Now, this is where it became very clear to me that they were trying to fit in, but they did a damn fine job of replicating the sound of the era, at least to their credit. Also, second major Alice in Chains reference is the "I think it's gonna rain." Where have I heard that before? Master and Slave. Them Bones influence once again about halfway through.
Not even just music aside, if you came to me and said, hey, I'm going to read you some song titles. Hate, Rain, Master and Slave. What decade did this album come out? I'd be like, oh, that's 90s for sure.
100%. Like this, at this point, I think it was like 94 they recorded it, but it didn't get released until about 97 because
So it was in the thick of grunge madness when they were recording this.
That's the thing. Like, I think it got shelved for a while because it didn't fit in with the 70s reunion that they were doing.
I think that came up. I think that came about because they did that Unplugged show with the original members, and then I think the ball just started rolling, and they were just like, let's just do this, which, in my opinion, was not a bad idea at all.
And that's the thing as well. I'm hearing the song "Childhood's End" and I'm thinking this is surreal. I never thought hearing Kiss play grunge would be such a mindfuck. But at the same time, when I say that out loud, it is still so weird.
Yeah.
I Will Be There doesn't take off really, but there's some cool instrumental choices in it. Jungle. Now, this has a production style so extremely similar to the Alice in Chains self-titled 95 Tripod album. And I know it's a Kiss podcast, but it's immensely hard to ignore the massive Alice in Chains influence over this whole thing.
Even the production style of the album sounds like the Tripod album by Alice in Chains.
Exactly. And the vocal harmonies too. They've got that kind of weird, creepy thing going on that Lane and Jerry were known for doing.
Yep.
In My Head.
That's the worst. That is the worst offender of the Alice in Chains ripoff. Like,
I was gonna say, this is an Alice in Chains album at this point with Paul and Gene on vocals. And did they work with the same producer that did Tripod?
I think the guy that mixed it was the guy that also mixed a Tripod. I think. I'm not totally sure.
Because if you took Lane and Jerry and put them over the top of these tracks, it'd be fucking Alice in Chains. It's so insanely close.
Oh, okay, no. So Toby Wright was the producer of Alice in Chains and this album. So yeah.
Holy shit.
So yeah, that's why they just literally said, "Hey, just keep all the presets."
Yeah.
We're just going to come right in and do that. Actually, really, this would have been slightly before. Because wasn't 95? Maybe they were recording it around the same time.
I was going to say, yeah.
Oh, this is so interesting. I want to get in and, because I heard I'm going to jump in real quick. I heard an interview with, I can't remember his name, but the guy that I believe he was an engineer on this album or mixed it or something like that. And he was relaying a conversation that he was having with Gene Simmons, where Gene Simmons admitted to him that he wanted to be the next Billy Corgan.
Wow.
He wanted to sound like Billy Corgan from Smashing Pumpkins, for those of you who don't know. And so if that gives you any idea of what may have been going on in that studio, it would not surprise me if they were recording around the same time as Alice in Chains, and they were just like, we like that sound too. Just keep that shit going.
It sounds way too fucking close to not to be a coincidence. Where am I at? It Never Goes Away. This honestly could have been a seriously respected album in mid-90s grunge if it wasn't the fact that Kiss made it. A band that wore makeup and neon colors, wore more of it than the women at their shows.
Had previously done songs with lyrics like, put your hand in my pocket and grab onto my rocket.
I find it so hilarious that as well, because aren't the Melvins big Kiss fans as well?
Yes, they are.
Yeah. Because they did a cover of
really,
Go
any
Blind.
band that's worth a damn is a Kiss fan. I'm sorry. It's in some way, somebody in that band is a Kiss fan.
True. Yeah. It's just such a wild thing reading through these notes and just knowing I'm 100% right about this, because I've heard so much Alice in Chains, and I can categorically say this is like they found the formula and they were just like, oh, we've got our hands on a new style we can play around with. I Confess, Vibey Rocker, In the Mirror, this sounds like something off Revenge but played through Soundgarden's rig. I Walk Alone has some cool moments on it. All in all, this album has moments that really grab me for a bit, but there's a lot of stuff where it just doesn't draw me in.
Yeah.
But hearing so much Alice in Chains influence on a Kiss album is like visiting a parallel universe, and I like it for that reason. Even if it does feel a little bit disingenuous, it's still cool to hear Gene Simmons over the top of grunge,
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting listen, and if you're keeping notes at home, this is our second matchup.
Hey!
My number 22 is also Carnival of Souls, and I love this because you say a lot of the things that I want to say. This is the last album that has Bruce Kulick on it.
Yes, and it's also the last of their no makeup era.
Oh yeah, that's true. And honestly, Carnival of Souls, the title of this album has always been interesting to me because it sounds like it doesn't fit the music. Like that should be a Kiss album title. This album to me should be called Kiss versus the 90s.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely what it is. And it's, unfortunately to me, like it does have some cool riffs here and there, and I like the overall vibe of it. But if this wasn't a Kiss album, it would be one of those dollar bin grunge also ran bands album that's in, you find it with the cutout in it, and people are like, oh, I've never heard this. It doesn't, there's nothing unique about this at all. And I agree with you that in the story of Kiss, because when it comes to discography, as I always talk about, I like bands that have an interesting story within where their albums go and how they approach them. So I like that album just for that, because it's not the same old shit. They did something different. I wouldn't say they took a chance, because they didn't legitimately release this. Like, it got released as an album, but from what I've gathered, they only really released it because it got leaked.
Yeah, there was a shitload of bootlegs that got handed out, and they were like, oh, crap, they're stealing our music.
Yeah.
So they were like,
So,
but my
biggest issue with this album is the fact that while I love bands that experiment and push their sound, this does not sound like an organic experiment. To me, this sounds like a desperate attempt to fit in somewhere with the music that was going on. It sounds heavy-handed as fuck. And, it's just a band trying to survive, which you could say that other albums they've done in the past were an attempt to, survive or to adapt to what was going on in the music world. But all of the other ones they did to me feel, when it comes to Kiss, they feel organic and they make sense. This one just feels like they were grasping at straws, and let's try this grunge one. So to me, it's hard to listen to. Plus, it's long, like so many albums from that era. It's so long, and there's no fun. You want to come to a Kiss album to have fun.
It's funny actually. I saw a bunch of like interviews and stuff where you could tell Gene was way more into it than Paul, because Paul was kind of like, the dark sound kind of fit with Gene's demon persona, but like the seriousness of it didn't gel with Paul, because he was like, we're rich. What are we going to write doom and gloom stories about? Our fucking limo being too late,
Yeah.
It's
and they do. I don't even know who it is, but there are co-writers on this, so they had people working with them, and so I'm curious about, were these people helping them make the grunge sound? Like, were they taking their songs and being like, oh no, you add this weird chord progression here, and you just you do this particular setting on the distortion, and there you go. There's your grunge sound, but.
Were they called Jerry and Lane by any chance? Because that's how it sounds.
No, I mean there's a guy named Scott Van Zinn. There's somebody called Curtis Cuomo. I think that might be it. No, Jamie St. James. Oh, you can actually click on that one and see who that person is. Jamie St. James. He was in a band called Black and Blue. Okay. All right. Well, that's at least that's somebody we know. So anyway, they had people working with them, but even then, it just. I don't know. I love it for what it is, but I rarely go back and visit it. It's an oddity that, like, sometimes I'll go, I'm gonna throw that on because I'm in kind of a weird mood, and but other than that, it's got very little going on that I am interested in when I want to listen to Kiss, and that is why it is my number 2, Carnival of Souls.
Right on, cool. So I have here at my 21. I have Music from the Elder.
Oh, man. Okay.
Yeah. See, this one, we're reaching territory now where I'm into it. To be honest, we've been in that territory since Peter Criss, but, this one to me is so out of left field that it, again, doesn't feel totally like Kiss.
Okay.
Fanfare is an orchestral opening track. I can
let's give a bit of background to people that are listening that aren't Kiss fans. So this is an album that they released. Was it 1980?
81.
81, and it was their version of a rock opera.
Yeah.
Where it's the best way to put it, and it wasn't received well at all. And even today, people talk shit about it. I am not one of those people, but we'll let Eddie give his 2 cents on the tracks here. So the Oath.
Remember that time Kiss thought they were a fucking prog band? I gave it a fair shot, but okay. I didn't quite vibe with it as much as stuff above it now.
Yeah.
We're reaching that kind of zone. So yeah, Fanfare is this orchestral opening track. I can only begin to imagine the look on a Kiss fan's face at the time when they heard a fucking oboe on a Kiss album. But, that was kind of the vibe they were going for. But then you get Just a Boy. Holy shit, they're folk now.
Okay. I was like, why is he starting with Fanfare? I was like, apparently the remastered version is in a different order. Okay, go ahead. Now I know what you're doing.
It's Just a Boy, like
I am just a boy.
Paul doing those boys choir voices. It's too funny. It actually reminds me of Queen at points. It gives off like Flash Gordon, but in like medieval times shit going on. Odyssey. this is worlds apart from any Kiss predating it. This is like a prog opera than anything else. Only You it's again, it's so insanely different, and this album's a real oddity in their catalog, and I can understand why it's such a divisive release. Under the Rose, full on progged out stuff on here, very Pink Floyd at points. Dark Light is the Jaws theme with a hard rock song attached to it.
See, I think that, and you'll hear this from me a lot. I think when Ace shows up on albums, they get better.
Yeah,
just the riff in Dark Light, that like there's something about it. I'm just like, oh, it's so cool. He wrote some cool fucking riffs that didn't sound like riffs that you always heard. And,
totally.
Dark Light's one of those songs.
I'm with you on that one. Ace is my favorite Kiss member. Like
samesies,
hands down. What we got here? We got A World Without Heroes has a cool vibe to it. Really liked that one.
Every time you say these, I want to sing them. A World Without Heroes.
Then we get The Oath. There's a real hat trick of greatness in this part of the album, admittedly.
The Oath is originally the first song on the album.
Is it?
So it's weird that they did it this way. I don't know why they did that, but okay.
Yeah, this track is like full on epic metal with like chuggy riffs, soaring vocals, and even some double kick going on. And I will say, had the album had more of that, it would be higher for me. I liked this part of the album. Mr. Blackwell has this.
You're not well,
yeah.
Mr. Blackwell. All right. Sorry, it's going to happen a lot.
It's got this grooving bass from Gene, and then it's got some atmospheric sections. Escape from the Island is a really cool escape scene soundtrack vibe.
Yeah,
captured that perfectly. And then it's a good credit song. This is one of those albums that ends like a movie.
Yeah,
and it feels like it's even got that like voiceover clip thing at the end of the song that feels like an after credits scene.
Yep.
It is a cool thing.
I'm not talking about this album on this episode, but I'm going to say one thing. It is one of those albums that you hear that if somebody else had made it, I think people would love it. People would be talking more about it as a classic, I believe.
Yeah, for me, the main reason it was pushed down is because I'm just a slut for cheesy 80s hard rock.
You could make the same argument that I made for Carnival of Souls, where you don't come to Kiss for this. So yeah, I get it.
That's the thing. Kiss have a lot of stuff that follows like a core sound, but they also have some like curveball records that are like, whoa, this is outside of their comfort zone, and you either like it or you don't. But really, again, like I say, Sonic Boom was the only one that I had this visceral kind of reaction to. Aside from that, the rest of them I'm pretty darn into.
Cool.
So that was my 21 music from The Elder.
My number 21, we're not matching up again. I'm still remaining in the newer era of Kiss. My number 21 is Psycho Circus from 1998, which is the album that ended up happening after they abandoned Carnival of Souls, got back together, well, quote unquote, got back together with Peace and Aider. I was about to call them. Hold on, I need a drink.
It's
not alcohol in there, it's just water.
He needs his speech juice.
Peter and Ace, yes. It was the reunion album that really wasn't a reunion album because from all accounts, Peter and Ace barely played on it. But it was for the tour they did as the reunited Kiss with makeup back on. It was a big deal when it came out. But
yeah,
even when it came out, I remember hearing the album and being like, this isn't very good. So it's kind of a reunion. And the one thing I have to say that's interesting is that this doesn't, even though they got their makeup back on, none of this feels like they're trying to do throwback music to the 70s.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're still trying to somehow fit in 1998, but while writing Kiss style songs. And maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
I feel like that they made an effort to bring their sound into the modern day of the time.
Sure.
And
without sounding derivative of something else, I guess. But it really does just sound like modern Kiss style songs. But a lot of them just aren't very good songs. But it feels a little more natural to me, I guess.
Yeah.
And my favorite song, which, as I said, and we're going to bring this up a lot, Into the Void, the Ace song, which is, as far as I know, the only song that all four members play on this album is Into the Void by Ace Frehley. And that song fucking rips. That is a really good song. Other songs are okay, but really, like, it's a lot of meh kind of stuff. And once again, if you're a huge Kiss fan, this is a cool album to listen to if you just want more Kiss. I do agree that it is enjoyable. I think the problem I have with the album is that I want it to be a lot better. And so it's hard for me to listen to it because I can just, knowing what you know about the album, I go, God, they had hired guns playing. They didn't really want to, they didn't really, shit wasn't going well with the other two members, and who knows who was the problem. And, you read Ace Frehley's book and the other dudes were the problem. And if you read Paul Stanley's book, Ace and Peter were the problem. It's just, it just brings along with it all this baggage, and that would be okay if it was a kick-ass album, but it's just a pretty good album. And so it's another one that I don't really listen to very much because I'm like, it just reminds me that, that didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. Like, they're not even getting together with Ace and Peter on this last tour, as far as I know. Maybe at their last show ever, they might do something, but it just makes me sad as a Kiss fan because I'm a fan of those four dudes that did that first chunk of music, as much as I think that everyone they played with was really talented. And you could say that Bruce Kulick is more talented than Ace Frehley, and I would be fine with that. I'd be like, I can see that. But just listening to this, I'm just like, it just sucks that it didn't work out. And so it's kind of a downer for me. And so that's why it is my number 21.
Yes.
Number 21. So on to your number 20.
Okay, so my number 20, the album that greatly improved on Sonic Boom, Monster.
Okay, cool.
So I've got Monster here because it's kind of a response to everything that didn't work about Sonic Boom to me. Instead of going down the route of just shitting out another Kiss album, it feels more crafted towards of kind of vibe and career spanning kind of thing, because it does at points feel like this almost seamless modern interpretation of both their 70s and 80s era at the same time.
Yeah.
And, Hell or Hallelujah, it has that feel. Wall of Sound is more of a groovy track with Gene on vocals, but retaining that career-spanning sound, albeit with a modern production style. Freak is kind of generic modern hard rock. Back to the Stone Age is kind of fun. Shout Mercy. It's like, so far this album feels like Kiss doing what a lot of other bands of their era have done, and they've jumped on this modern interpretation of hard rock as a whole bandwagon rather than just their own sound.
Yeah.
And, there's nuggets of Kiss's sound in the guitar fills.
That is a good way to point it. What you just put it as like, it's because I think that's my problem with so much modern rock music, especially from your older bands, is that they all seem to be pulling out of this same generic pool of riffs and song ideas.
Yeah.
And it's like the leftovers. It's like there's all the meat and the bones, and then there's the leftover like chicken stock or whatever, and they're just pulling out of that. And it's such a letdown most of the time.
There's a chord sequence in modern hard rock that I'll have to figure out the chords. It's so overused. I'll have to find out what it is. But I'm so sick of hearing it, and I can't place it right now. But I'll look into it. But I've heard so many bands do the same thing, and it might have appeared on here. I can't quite remember, but there's nuggets of Kiss's sound in the guitar fills and in the vocals. But aside from that, there's parts on here that sound like any other band these days. Mm-hmm. And, it's sad to admit that so many bands do this, but, it's like you say, they are they're all pulling from the same kind of gene pool when it comes to these songs. Long Way Down has a cool vibe going on. Eat Your Heart Out. Now, yes, this is the old school vibe that we like. It's full on 80s party throwback here. The drums sound great on Eat Your Heart Out. The Devil Is Me is a hard rocker. Out of This World is a stadium rock track with some serious Mississippi Queen influence going on there, especially with the tick 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 moments. Yeah. All for the Love of Rock and Roll. This one has a big 70s Kiss feel. Really like that one. Take Me Down Below, full on cock rock at its finest. There's no subtlety in the innuendos at all. And Last Chance is a hard rocker appropriately titled, since this is likely to be the final Kiss studio album, considering we haven't had a new one in 9 years now. So
yeah,
unless they're gonna do a Psycho Circus to Sonic Boom gap on us again before they. But the thing is, they're on their farewell thing now, aren't they?
Yeah, I guess
At
we'll
least
have to see. I don't know.
Farewell.
I really do think that if I don't understand why they haven't started putting out all kinds of different live recordings from over the years, because fans would buy them. I think we talked about this before, that if they put out a live album that took place on the Creatures of the Night tour, I'd buy that shit. And I know there's got to be soundboard recordings out there. Maybe they're not up to the quality. Maybe it'd have to be a bootleg or whatever. But I don't know. Maybe they should put out a bootleg set of just some. These recordings aren't amazing. I don't know. I think they would make a good amount of money off that. So maybe they should start doing that. Because I'm sure they have so much shit in the vaults. Start putting that out for the fans, because we all still want to hear the stuff from the past. And I would listen to something new. I'm not sure I would even like it, but I would give it a shot. I think now that we've both finished talking about the modern Kiss era. Before we leave it, I think it's important to give some props to Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer, who are both very talented people. Now, Eric Singer, he played on Revenge, right?
I believe so.
So
he
talk
played
about
on
him.
Some songs.
We'll talk about him a bit more. But even though we talk shit, and I hate the fact that they're wearing Ace and Peter's makeup, those dudes are really talented. And and they filled the gap when who else was going to do it? They weren't getting along with Ace and Peter, so it wasn't going to work. So props to Tommy and Eric for doing it, and just they did their thing, and good on them.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, even though the visuals are very important to Kiss's live show, at the end of the day, it is still superficial, and it is about the music. So, they do a fine job as, drummer and lead guitarist. Cool.
Well, obviously we're not going to match up here because I already talked about Monster, but I'm going to make my first, it might be an unpopular ranking.
Oh.
But we're going to go back to 1978 for my number 20, and we're going to be talking about my least favorite of the solo albums, and that is the Gene Simmons solo album.
Yeah.
It is.
It's fucking weird.
It's rough.
Yeah.
And like we talked about the Peter Criss one already. I enjoy the Peter Criss one Now, to be fair, we're also getting into a level of albums here where I love all these albums.
Yeah.
Like I own a lot of them on vinyl. I haven't gotten a lot of the later ones yet, but even though I do enjoy listening to this album, it's the one that out of the solo albums that I look at it and go, I don't want to do this. I feel kind of dirty.
Yeah.
It has a weird, creepy vibe to it.
Yeah, I'm going to mention this in my notes later, but Gene, whenever he tries to do something sensual, it comes off I don't know what it is. There's just something about the delivery there that's like, okay, please stop touching me.
Yeah. Gene Simmons is one of those people.
Sorry, Gene.
Next to like Ted Nugent, that I don't understand why women haven't come out talking about horrible things he did. Well, I think some did about Gene Simmons, but I don't think they were anything that, obviously he didn't get canceled or whatever. So it wasn't anything like that. But if anyone was going to be the Bill Cosby of Kiss, I would expect it to be Gene Simmons. No offense, Gene, because I love Gene, but there's a vibe, even on the early stuff. Some lyrics I just go, like all the way back to Christine 16. I'm just like, he's a little bit too far. And maybe like that's the point. Maybe that's part of his character, I guess. Because I don't know how much is the demon and how much is the Gene,
Yeah. I think, like, isn't there an interview somewhere that aired on TV? It's on YouTube, and he walks on and they say, "Hey Gene, how you doing?" And "I'm great, and there's a lot of necks and cheeks out there, like really tasty tonight." It's like, God. Wow.
I feel like that was more performance art than anything else, but
oh yeah.
But there's maybe that's what it is that adds a level of creepiness to this album, but to me, it's also the most uninteresting because I feel like the other three guys made unique albums and Gene Simmons' album feels like he wasn't quite sure what he was going for.
It's very hybrid. There's a lot of weird mashup stuff going on here.
Yeah, and I guess maybe if that goes along with his taste, because some people do have really varied tastes.
Yeah.
And so maybe he was being true to himself there, but as a listener, it's very uneven, and some songs are cool, other ones are kind of whatever. I don't know why he re-recorded See You in Your Dreams, because it's not any better than the version on Rock and Roll Over. And so it's just weird. And then on top of that, the cover of When You Wish Upon a Star, it is I don't even think a word exists to describe my reaction every time I hear it. It's like I don't know. It's like feeling like seeing a dead naked woman on the road.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So it's a weird, creepy, yet very interesting, uncomfortable cover of When You Wish Upon a Star.
Yeah.
That was the worst thing. I don't think that made very much sense, but you get the vibe. There's nothing overtly creepy about it at all. It just has this vibe of I don't know, a serial murderer, a serial murderer singing this from his van. Come in when you wish. And I'm just, oh God, no. It's like
he's wearing like a skin suit of all his victims. When you wish upon a star.
It's just, I don't know. It gives me so many weird emotions that I will just stop the album before that song happens. But it's not, I'm being a little harsh on it, but it's not an awful album. It's a fun listen. It's 70s era Kiss, and so I enjoy that aspect of it. But out of the four, it is the one where I'm just like, nah, I'll listen to something else.
I will say there's an element to it, like you say, where it's not it's not really a heavy album either. Like, there's a lot of very soft stuff on here, but that paired with like the artwork, I think it's scarier this way because it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, wow, this guy didn't just go down the heavy route. This guy went down the mentally unhinged, what the fuck is going on route. Yeah.
Gene Simmons makes people feel things. So
Yeah.
and sometimes they're not pleasant. But I mean, yeah. Honestly, before I went back and listened to all the albums like all together, I probably wouldn't have been as harsh with this record. But in context with everything else, when I heard this,
Yeah.
I was just like, yeah, there's a lot of things that I don't really like about this album. So that's why it's the dead last of the 70s era Kiss for me. Or, original lineup of Kiss. But I guess the lineup doesn't play on here. Anyway, fun fact, Katie Siegel, who was in the show Married with Children, sings backup on this album. And Joe
Holy
Perry,
shit.
Joe Perry plays guitar on a couple songs from Aerosmith. You would think that I would like that aspect of it, but it's not enough.
I thought I recognized that voice. Oh my god! Yeah, I can definitely.
You can pick her out on there.
I can pick her out. I can hear her voice. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Damn. I thought it sounded familiar. That's insane.
There you go. Or yeah, so it's a fun record. It's just it's got its rough moments that drag it down.
Can I was gonna save this for my notes on the album, but I think I should say it here.
Okay.
I know you write me sexy letters.
Okay, don't ever do that again.
That moment on the album was what tipped me over the edge. Do you know, this was my exact reaction. What the fuck? I was in stitches, pissing myself laughing at that point because I thought, what?
I mean, maybe he's
halfway
just
in.
a genius and he's wanting to create that kind of vibe. I mean, maybe let's give him the benefit of the doubt.
Like somewhere he's listening to this, laughing his ass off, knowing it worked. Eddie from Cranked and Ranked was very unnerved about the whole thing.
He has like a chart of all the people in the world, and once they become uncomfortable by him, he puts a check mark next to them. He's just like another one down.
I don't think I've ever seen an interview with Gene Simmons that didn't give me secondhand social anxiety. Like, there's just something about the dynamic that just makes me crack up. But yeah. So I guess that brings me to
number 19.
My number 19. I've gone for Psycho Circus.
All right.
Now, here's something as well I kind of picked up on. They did Carnival of Souls, and then they did Psycho Circus. So I don't know whether or not they had like kind of an idea for Carnival of Souls to have that kind of theme, but then again, that was like kind of an afterthought. And they thought, shit, we kind of blew our carnival theme on the last one. Oh, what's another word for that? Oh, circus? Yeah, we'll use that.
But there's so many bands when they got older. I mean, Motley Crue's one of them. Everything became like circus. It's a circus, which like it's not the kind of circus I want to go to because it's just filled with white trash people.
There really was a boom of like big top tent themed like rock acts at one point. I'm sure of it. Mm-hmm. Like. That was a trend. That was definitely a trend.
That is a thing that if you're a rock band, just leave circuses behind. It's been done to death.
With that, I'm going to go into the track by track. So opening with Psycho Circus. Great opening song. I really like this. Also, the video is hilariously late 90s, and I sent it to you. and I can't take my mind off the fact that it looks like a bowling alley screen when you get a strike. You know, it has those same exact graphics going on. It's like kind of, yeah, it's CG and you can see what's going on, but it feels off. Like there's something weird about it, and it's kind of cool. But within, you know, I'll be honest, these first 2 tracks fucking rule. Yeah, you know, I pledge allegiance to the state of rock and roll. Kind of a wordy title there, but yeah, I find it hard to argue with it. You know, there's elements I'm not too hot on, but that chorus is rad. Into the Void, Ace Frehley, baby.
That's such a good song.
Hell yeah. We Are One, the ballad track, it's okay. You Wanted the Best. Now, this is more like it. I love that all the members sing on it. Raise Your Glasses gave me Enough Is Enough vibes. Fly High Michelle has the same chord sequence, and I'm thinking that's cool. I Finally Found My Way, you know, a 90s power ballad. You know, get the tissues, guys. Peter's on the mic. Dreamin' has my favorite chord sequence. Yes, please. My favorite chord sequence is the Dirty Diana / Iron Maiden progression. So that always gains anything more points. And Journey of 1,000 Years is just this big epic track closing out the album. There's a vibe around this album that kind of makes me happy that, you know, they came full circle and they did do a reunion. You know, even if I was too young to appreciate it when it happened. Yeah. But it does make me sad that it didn't work out, because I like seeing those 4 guys having a good time. I don't know what it is. You kind of like, you see footage of bands in like interviews and stuff, and they just kind of all look like a bunch of dysfunctional brothers, and you're just kind of there like, oh, I kind of want those guys to make a sitcom, you know?
Yeah. Plus, there's something to be said about 4 guys going. They're the only 4 guys that went through that Kiss thing, and not only that, very few people in the history of the world have gone through the experience of being one of the 4 people in one of the biggest bands in the world. Yeah. Like there was almost a Beatlemania kind of thing behind them in the States. Oh, totally. And so there's a part of me that goes like, those guys seem unique because they were the only ones that went from being a nothing band with a really big idea to actually being a really big band. And so I just think that it makes them, that's why it makes them the Kiss lineup for me. As much as I enjoy the 80s Kiss, I like those 4 dudes and how they played and what they did and their dynamics and how they played off of each other. I just love it. And so, yeah, it is sad that it doesn't work out for them.
There's an episode of Family Guy that's solely based on Peter and Lois going to a Kiss concert, and they go, and it turns out Lois isn't really a big fan of Kiss. She just did it to make Peter happy. But anyway, they go and they hand her the mic during Rock and Roll All Night, and she goes, "And have a wonderful time." And they're like, this whole rock thing is dead to me now. And Gene and Paul storm off stage. And then Ace and Peter just jump out and say, "Now's our time to shine." And they start like singing show tunes and stuff. It's just hilarious. It is funny to watch. But they had a lot of Kiss jokes on that. And they voiced themselves too. So it's...
that is one thing that I have to say is that it seems like those dudes, Paul and Gene mostly, they have a good sense of humor, I think, about themselves.
For sure.
And so that makes it a little bit better when you know that they're okay with being, you know, poked fun at a little bit. And it makes sense.
For sure. Yeah, and we've said it before on the show. We love bands that have the capacity to not take themselves too super seriously, you know, especially when a band can turn around and sell air guitar strings, which is just an empty bag with the Kiss brand on it.
Yep. Yeah. So they do take themselves very seriously in some aspects when it comes to managing their bank accounts. So anyway, so that was 19. We're on number 19.
Yep.
So my number 19, I'm going to stay exactly where I was and talk about an album you already talked about. My number 19 is the Peter Criss solo album.
Hey, here we go.
And at first I thought this one was going to be the lower of the two between this one and Gene Simmons. But going back and listening to them, the thing that makes this an album that I enjoy is the fact that it sounds honestly like Peter Criss. Like there is no other album that Peter Criss could have made. I feel like this is the kind of shit he liked to play and sing. And I agree, it's pretty bland, especially compared to Kiss. Everything happening in the 70s with Kiss, this is the most bland of the Kiss offerings. But I guess it's in hindsight, it's got a cool 70s vibe to it. And the thing that I like about it, and this could be seen as an insult to the album, but I think it makes it enjoyable. There was a time period, and it wasn't just in the 70s, but I think it started in the 70s, where all sorts of dudes from TV shows started making albums. Like, I'm the guy that plays the cop on this show. Here's my album. And that's what this album sounds like. It sounds like a TV star made an album. And so it's like, it's just soft enough for the middle-aged women who watch the TV show to still be into it, but also a little bit rock and roll. So they'll be like, oh, he's a bad boy. And so, but that makes me like it. I like, because that seems like Peter Criss. Like he seemed like a kind of a softie, not in a bad way, but I mean, but yeah, I think that it's fun and interesting just because it feels so 1978. And that's really all I have to say about it. It's got songs on it that I enjoy and some songs that I don't. But it's a cool, altogether, they're all cool pieces of the Kiss solo album puzzle. I think that each one of them is important in some way, but when you're ranking things, it becomes a little different. Then you have to be a little bit honest about stuff. And so there you go. My number 19 is the Peter Criss solo album.
Cool. So I'm going to keep this train rolling with the solo albums because my number 18 is the Gene Simmons.
I feel like we've talked enough about it, but let's jump right back in. Ladies, here's where you take a break because Uncle Gene is back.
See, I've got Radioactive begins like this kind of soundtrack before going into an upbeat rock and roll and Kiss song. Burning Up with Fever, you got, now this is the type of song I was expecting from this album, that plodding, groovy strip riffage.
Yeah.
See You Tonight, surprisingly soft for the member whose costume is a fucking demon.
The guy that vomits blood.
Yeah, and breathes fire, This has more in common with, the Beatles than the god of fucking thunder.
Yeah.
Tunnel of Love, chorus bass. Fuck yeah, love chorus on bass. True Confessions, rock and roll and Kiss track, but I've got to say, I was expecting something heavier from this album, considering the album art and, Gene's demon character as a whole. This song feels more like Lynyrd Skynyrd, and, I like him, but it's weird thinking of a demon singing Southern rock,
Yeah.
You're Living in Sin, the intro to it left me in fucking, I was on the floor crying, laughing at that fucking, I know you write me sexy letters thing. It just took me so off guard. And the fact he kept doing that heavy breathing thing, I can't imagine anyone in the studio trying to keep a straight face while he recorded that. How do you do that?
Know, speaking of that, do you know something that I don't know? I'm a big Kiss fan, but I guess I haven't read enough about them because they were always very secretive about their identities around up until a certain point. Did they wear makeup during studio sessions when they had studio musicians? Like for these solo albums, they had all these studio musicians. Did those people just get to see them in their street clothes, or did they separate them from each other? There's got to be a book out there about this. If anybody's listening to this on YouTube, put in the comments a good book about that, because I'm interested in how that whole thing worked.
that's the thing, right? I can't begin to imagine a world where Kiss wouldn't have worn the makeup, because they just seem so involved in the process, and like all of the world building and stuff around all the things they did.
Yeah.
It just strikes me as something incredibly. That's why when they took the makeup off, it was such a big deal.
Yeah, exactly. And you would read stuff like, I remember reading in a book about Rush, and Rush played a lot of shows with Kiss in the early days, and they talked about how they'd be hanging out backstage after the show, and Kiss is still in their makeup. And so I'm like, shit, man, it was the long game for those guys.
And they'd wear it in like interviews and shit too. So
yeah. So I'm assuming maybe in this case, especially when there was a lot of outsiders playing with him, maybe he did at least wear the face makeup or something. Maybe he didn't wear the platform shoes. I don't know.
I'd love to imagine that like one day they didn't. It wasn't even makeup anymore. It was just their face. So they'd wake up and they're in like
so much.
They're like in like dressing gowns and bathrobes, pouring themselves cups of coffee in the morning, and it's like 6 o'clock in the morning, and they've got the entire stage get up on. But yeah, it'd be so fucking funny to see that. Where was I at?
You had just done Living in Sin, I think.
Right on. Always Near You / Nowhere to Hide is this, big cinematic, soulful sounding track. Also, I had no idea he could sing that high. Like,
yeah,
he's got a crazy range, but he stays in this.
Yeah, well, he's got there's some stuff, especially I think when you get into the 80s, where he did start to play around with a higher range a little bit. Not all the time, but here and there he did.
Yeah, it's really cool. Man of 1,000 Faces, you can really feel that like kind of 60s influence running through this album, on top of some 70s tropes as well. By that I mean I hear some Beatles-isms. Also, the chorus sounds like Baba O'Reilly and or Ain't Seen Nothing Yet. That bum, bum, bum kind of thing. Mr. Make Believe, again, really soft for Gene, but who am I to take away his right to explore on his solo album? But like, See You in Your Dreams, I put in my notes, totally forgetting that it is a Kiss song. I put, actually sounds like a Kiss song.
Yeah,
because it fucking is.
Yeah.
And then finally, you get When You Wish Upon a Star cover, the Disney classic. And of all the things that he threw at me on this record, he has the audacity to top it off with this cherry on the cake. I look at the artwork. I see a demon with blood dripping down his lip, and he's looking at me all sinister, and all of a sudden I hear, when you wish upon a star. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Huh? But, that's just, he's a kooky character.
Depending on how you're looking at it, it could be a genius move that he made there.
Yeah. He puts the gene in genius, man.
Yeah. I'm sure that's not the first time that's been said. Cool. Well, this is okay. So now I'm on to my number 18. We got two. Well, I got two more albums to talk about on this episode, but I feel like this is where you and I probably will really start to pull away from each other. I think, knowing what I know about you, I think this is going to happen. So my number 18, I guess I'll name it and then I'll start talking about my how I got here. My number 18 is the album Animalize from 1984.
Ooh.
So with the 80s Kiss stuff, like you said, it feels like a different band, or at least an alternate universe version of a band. Yeah. If I'm taking them on their own merit, there are things that I enjoy about them, but then put up next to classic Kiss, the holes start appearing in everything. And Animalize, out of all of their non-makeup 80s stuff, this is the weakest album that they did. But I'm not even talking about production-wise, because it sounds good. Like, they had a good 80s rock sound going on. And I think this is the only album that has Mark St. John as the lead guitarist.
Yeah.
And this also has the the pleasure of being an album that has a song that I like to refer to as the bathroom song, because I would watch Headbangers Ball when I was a kid, and there were, sometimes, you would wait for the commercial to go to the bathroom, but other times a song would come on and you'd go, oh, I'm going to go use the bathroom. And I knew it was time to go to the bathroom when you would see Paul Stanley show up and his hands are on fire and he's going, whoa! And that was the Heavens on Fire video. And I hated that song. I love it now, but it always reminds me of me going, oh, time to go to the bathroom or go to get a soda or something else, because I'm not watching Heavens. I don't know why, even into the 90s, they would play Heavens on Fire so much when there was even stuff from Revenge happening, but you would still see the Heavens on Fire video. And so, but that's really one of the biggest standout points on this album. Now, this is, we're thigh deep in the pool of Kiss with co-writers era of the band. Pretty much every song except for two songs have co-writers, which I honestly don't have a lot of a problem with that, because bands like Aerosmith did it, but they ended up turning out some really good songs. There are songs that are written by them with co-writers that are not good. And I'm like, well, what is the fucking point? Write a shitty song yourself. And so the biggest example of that for me is the song, well, no, this song does not have a co-writer. Burn, Bitch, Burn by Gene Simmons. Bitch, burn. So here's why. So here, I'm going to talk to you as songwriter to songwriter, because we've both written songs before.
Okay.
Doesn't that sound like they just ran out of lyrics on the fucking chorus? Burn, bitch, burn. Ooh. It's the most throwaway part of a song I've ever heard, because they actually wrote a melody for something to happen there, and yet it's just a woo woo, and I'm just every time I hear it, I go, that is a complete waste of space on this album. But now that I'm looking at it, it's written by Gene Simmons solely. But still, I guess that's why they needed some help, because when they wrote songs on their own, they had shit that they filled empty space with some woos. But let me get on the positive side of things real quick. I love the vibe of this album because it feels like an 80s rock album, and you and I love that 80s rock sound, and it's fun. This is a fun album. It's just out of that era of Kiss, this is the least fun of those albums for me. And really, the problem is the vibe is good. The songs are not as good as the vibe. And
I can see that.
It's got a lot of generic songwriting. It's got a lot of songs that, earlier we're talking about the Peter Criss album and whatnot, and I'm singing because it immediately makes me remember how the song goes. I don't know how Get All You Can Take goes, and I've heard Animalize probably 50 times, and I'm like, Get All You Can Take, which song is that? I just don't. It's just a whole bunch of songs that are forgettable, and then you end this album with a song title that I think every band in the 80s wrote a song with a version of this song title, Murder in High Heels. I feel like every 80s band had some sort of evil in high heels or bitch in high heels, whatever it was. I feel like it's just go ahead and just, the 80s rock song generator, Murder in High Heels, is going to come out at some point.
I'm just going to say this now as well. I can think of about 5 other. I'm going to put myself on the spot here. How many, from the same album, how many 80s hard rock and glam metal songs do you know that are called Under the Gun?
Oh, not just glam. I mean, not a lot. There's a lot of songs called Under the Gun.
There's one obviously there's one by Kiss. There's one by Danger Danger. There's one by Lita Ford. There's one by, I'll have to think, but there's a lot. I've seen a fair amount. There
are some of those phrases. What do you call those when it's like a phrase that is used a lot? I don't know. I'm not that kind of smart person.
Here's the thing as well. Here's a pretty egregious thing from the 80s hard rock song titling generator. Putting In the Night on the end of anything. Because I can think of, Thrills in the Night, Turn on the Night, Thief in the Night, just diverging here a minute. Crazy Nights. Crazy Nights.
Crazy Nights.
You look at the last two tracks on Crazy Nights, and it's a diversion, but Turn on the Night and then Thief in the Night.
Yeah,
one comes right after the other.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of like not trying very hard in a lot of this music. It's just, this is good enough. And I've almost to the point where I feel like the actual performing of the songs and the production of the songs took way more talent than the actual writing. Like they were just doing it on the side while they were watching TV or something. But anyway, but that being said, like I said early in this podcast episode, I love this band, but I also am very critical of them, but in a loving way, because I love Animalize. It's a really fun album to listen to, but once again, stacked up against all the other shit we haven't talked about, it comes up short for me, and so that's why it is my number 18.
Cool. Now I have a question now with regards to the system that this show operates on. My number 17 could change. Oh. Seeing as we're on, I'm going to be honest. I did have ample opportunity to prep for these episodes, but I still have like a few albums left to properly rank further up. But I feel like this is such a controversial placement that it could get bumped up into next episode's section of the list. And it could I do a switcheroo if it's the same band? If we're still covering the same band?
So I will allow you to do that just for these crossovers, 17s and 16s, where we're leaving off. I'm not, my list is solidified for the most part. So yeah. I'm not going to be doing that, but yeah, I'll allow you because I mean, there's no rules. We make up the fucking rules here. And in the end, it's all about just talking about these albums. So if you decide to change your ranking next time, it'll be interesting, but then we have to talk about an extra album next time.
Oh yeah. Well, what I'll do is if I talk about my 17 now, then I'll just do the old switcheroo next time, and I'll cover the other album that goes in its place to swap it.
I will allow that.
Cool.
Thank you all for listening to our meeting.
It might not even change. I just feel uncomfortable. I feel uncomfortable seeing this at such a low place.
I think this is when shit starts to get interesting. All right, so let's hear your number 17 then. Cool.
So my number 17. I'm gonna bite the bullet on this one. I'm gonna say Dress to Kill.
All right. Okay.
Okay. So like this album, and I've heard it said in other areas, there is a certain rushed quality to it. There are classic songs on it, but it's not got like an abundance of solos as far as I can remember. And
everything feels very brief on this album, and the album is very brief as well.
It's very in and out within a half hour. So yeah, I'm gonna go straight for it. So Room Service, fun, upbeat song. Two-timer, slower groover, me likey. Ladies in Waiting, fun, good time rock and roll song. Getaway, it's got a very upbeat feel, to its credit. It does feel a little unfinished in some areas.
Yeah.
Rock Bottom is half a cool, mysterious instrumental acoustic guitar track before going into the rock and rollin' vibe of this record. Mm-hmm. It's very consistent to its credit.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, this is a 1975 album. Yeah. 1975. Yeah. This was the third Kiss album. And at this point, even though they had done 3 albums, they had not yet broken big yet. They were still, trying to work their way up to the top. So they were putting out albums. I think they did 2 in a year. And then this one, I think did 2 in 74 and then 1 in 75. Like they were knocking them out.
Yeah, well, they had. That's why they say Alive is what broke the band, because like a lot of people's opinions on Kiss are formed on, the basis that it's actually the definitive versions of some of these studio tracks are actually to be found on the Alive albums.
Yeah.
Because they're just such great at capturing the vibe of the live show. But Come On and Love Me is a nice and sexy acoustic led fun track. It's very fun. It's very fun. Anything for My Baby, great fun. Heavy groove, always love that. Love Her All I Can, it's just more great rock and roll. Now, Rock and Roll All Night, closing track, is the song that people think of when Kiss comes up.
It's easily the best known Kiss song.
100%. But it's weird. I think it's not the most played on Spotify, which is astonishing to me.
Which one would be the most played on Spotify?
I think it's I Was Made for Loving You, strangely. Let's have a look here. Yeah, Rock and Roll All Night has 212 million plays. I Was Made for Loving You has 335 million plays.
So that goes to show you that the power of negativity also draws people to listen to your shit. So on the one hand, you have one song where everyone loves this song, and then the other one is everybody hates this song because it's the disco song, and more people flock. It's like the modern era. It's like people becoming viral. It's not always because they're good. Sometimes it's for the shit that people hate.
I will say as well, there's something cool about looking at their top most played. I think 2 of them are from Destroyer, and the rest are all from totally different albums. So it shows that there's strong songs in everything they ever did.
I agree.
Yeah, so, Dress to Kill, it doesn't feel as complete to me as some other Kiss albums.
Honestly, I love Dress to Kill, but it is an album that when I see it lower down on lists, I'm like, yeah, I get it. It makes sense.
It's kind of like the British Steel of their catalogue, where it's like, it's got the iconic track on it, but it's also got a lot of albums that are better than it as well. So
I would agree. That is not my number 17.
I'm excited.
We're gonna wrap this up still in the 80s. And we're going to be moving up a year to 1985. My number 17 is the album Asylum.
Hey.
Which is the first album, I believe, with Bruce Kulick on guitar.
Yeah.
And it's still got the big 80s vibe, just like Animalize. Honestly, sonically, it's very similar.
I was going to say there's very, very little separating the two.
Yeah, and they still got the co-writers helping them out here. I think there are better songs on here, though. Just the singles alone, your Who Wants to Be Lonely and Tears Are Falling and All Night. There's another night for you.
Oh my God. Rock and Roll All Night. Holy shit.
Rock and Roll All Night, yep. There's still a good amount of forgettable songs on here. I don't know how Love's a Deadly Weapon goes, just thinking about it off the top of my head. But it's, I've heard this album also a lot. And I feel like it gets by on its vibe a lot more than it does on its songs. But it's really not that much different from Animalize, except for I think that it just got a higher percentage of good songs, in my opinion. And honestly, with these albums, I don't have a lot to say about them because I didn't listen to them a lot, because I didn't get into Kiss until Crazy Nights came out, which is after this album. And then later on in my life, I listened a lot to the 70s era Kiss, and even up until Creatures of the Night and stuff like that. I didn't listen to these albums a lot. And so I don't have a lot of a history with them, except for seeing the music videos and putting them in with a lot of the other 80s albums that I love. Like if I want to go listen to some cool 80s rock, albums like Animalize and Asylum are in that bunch that I'm like, I'm going to go listen to these. And so that's one thing when, people would make the claim that they were, jumping on a bandwagon for popularity. But I'm like, well, it doesn't feel that far removed from 70s Kiss. It's still big rock music that's fun, and it doesn't feel like Carnival of Souls. It feels natural that they wanted to make this more polished, upbeat kind of version of, I guess, less rockin' in certain ways, I guess you could say. Yeah, not a lot to say about Asylum. It's good. If you like, that's the thing. If you like that glam metal sound of the 80s, then Asylum's great. But aside from that, it doesn't have a whole lot going for it, in my opinion. I do. It's around the time that, Paul Stanley was wearing a lot of flowy, colorful outfits and things like that. But yeah,
it's an era of men's fashion that I wish never ended. And I could just walk around in like bright neon tiger print spandex and
you still can, sir. Like, you can feel free to be yourself.
I still do. There's just a certain level of getting laid I wouldn't get. Actually, no, that's true. Actually, I'm with a lovely young lady, and she's into the glam thing, so that's awesome.
Well, there you go. See, so you can't go ahead and I'm sure you have spandex somewhere in your closet.
I am not denying a thing.
I don't. I'm one of those people that I have like all these different versions of the same outfit in my closet, and that's it. Like, it's all black pants with black shirts, and they're all the same. Like, once I find a pair of jeans or shirt that I like, I buy like 5 of them, and then I'll just line them up in a row, and then that's it. I don't have to think about it anymore.
The next time I do a glam metal history, I'm going to go all out with the outfit. I have zebra trousers in there. I've got cowboy boots. I actually have like a permed out wig that I'll probably wear for it.
Do you have a mesh top?
I need a mesh top.
Okay, that's very important. All right, well, there we go. We've reached the end of part 1 of our 3-part Kiss ranking. This has been fun. I'm honestly really looking forward to the next 2. For those of you who are Kiss fans that are along with us, I'm sorry if I talked a lot of shit. But it's coming from a place of love. Kiss is a band that I love. I get really mad when people, because there's assumptions that people make about Kiss. The one that I hate is that people will refer to them as a manufactured band, like a boy band,
like a business.
And I'm like, in 1973, there was no money. Nobody put them together. They had a manager and they had things like that, but they were a rock band that had an idea of doing this sort of theatrical kind of thing, and that's as far as it went. But it's like people that just don't know what the fuck they're talking about. They like to assume things. Yeah. And I'm just like, God, it pisses me off so much. So I'm one of those Kiss fans that it makes my blood boil when people talk shit about Kiss when they don't know what they're talking about. And so I'm glad that we're doing this, because Kiss is a fun band to talk about if you're a fan. There's a lot to talk about. So, this is the end of part 1. Do you have anything to say before we wrap it up?
My list will be final by our next episode.
I'll allow you, even with each episode, with number 1, if you feel like you want to switch things around. You feel free. We're not being stringent with the rules, because if we did that, then this would be really boring. Because I have a feeling that if we keep doing these rankings for years, eventually something's going to happen where we go back to one from years before and go, oh, why did I rank that way?
We should do like a year anniversary special where we look at like our lists and we do like rebuttals and stuff, like I take that back or something like that.
All right. We could definitely do that. All right, so that's all we got for this edition of Cranked and Ranked. Thank you very much for listening. If you're on YouTube, thank you for watching the pictures, and leave some comments down below. Like and subscribe. Also, go subscribe to Eddie Sparxx on YouTube. He's got more shit in the works. He's a quality over quantity kind of guy, and I'm the opposite. It's worth it. It's worth the wait. But yeah, so that's it for this edition of Cranked and Ranked. Thank you for listening. And as usual, I'm going to let Mr. Eddie Sparxx take us out.
La, yeah, yeah, yeah.